Hi and welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Collins, who with my expert guests will take you on a weekly journey to destinations around the globe, providing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, practical tips and more to help you plan your next travel adventure. Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Global Travel Planner Podcast. So this week I'm welcoming back, because actually Annette and I started recording this a few weeks ago, but Annette wasn't very well, were you? So we've had to put it off till this week. So we're chatting to Annette Jones, who travels Australia and other destinations full time now. You're kind of full-time traveller, aren't you, Annette?
I am, yeah, and loving it.
And very luckily so. I know, I have to say, very jealous. So tell us a little bit about your background, Annette, where you're from, and kind of, I suppose, your journey to ending up with the lifestyle that you have today.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. That was a great intro. Thank you for your lovely welcome. You want me to kick off with where I actually started, where I was born?
Yeah,
like as far back as
I think it's because you've got an English accent, but I know you. Well, you've got. I can pick it up, but I know you spent most of your life in Australia. But I swear I can hear that English accent.
Yeah, some people do with just certain words, and but you know, my partner thinks I'm as Aussie. But there you go. So I was born in Manchester and moved to Australia with my family as a 10-pound pom when I was 8 years old, and grew up in Sydney. Married, moved to Mackay. My two boys were born there. Lived as an expat in Zimbabwe in Africa, and then moved to Bougainville, which is an island about 1,000 k's off the Papua New Guinea coastline, and we were there for 2 years. And then I've lived sort of all down the Queensland coast, from Mackay, Tannum Sands, Brisbane, Gold Coast. And probably about 15 or so years ago, I started, dabbling with this thing called blogging. And I distinctly remember there was a day we were driving down the Ocean Road, and I thought, because I was taking notes madly wherever we were going and what we were doing and so forth, and I thought, oh, God, I'd love to do this full-time as a job, because I don't think it would really be a job. It's one of those, you'd never have to work a day in your life if you love what you're doing sort of things.
Yes, exactly.
So that was when the real passion for it was born, I suppose. And it really did start probably back 2009. I kept a diary, I wouldn't call it a blog, for friends and family in Australia when I travelled over to Europe. It was only a 6-week sort of holiday. And I loved writing, and people actually loved reading it. So it was more of a diary sort of thing back then. Now what I do is I share information with our audience about travelling Australia. Our main point of difference is that we are quite niched in that we help people plan a lap of Australia. It's kind of, for your listeners that don't know, it's kind of like a rite of passage for most Aussies. They want to do the lap of the country.
It's on our list, Annette. It's on our list. But once we've finished the kind of exploring further afield, I definitely will be picking your brains for that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Anytime. So we had always planned to do some laps of Australia after we'd retired from the workforce, the general workforce, so to speak. But first we thought we'd go and live in Southeast Asia for a couple of years, work our way up to Portugal, across Europe, and then come back and do all of that. But COVID hit. And we were actually in Bali when COVID was sort of kicking off, and we were there looking at villas to see which ones we'd probably hire, to go live there for a year. So when all that started, we thought, it seems to have was worse than we all thought at first. And we thought, we'll flip our plans and we'll do this lap of Australia. But what we didn't know that things got delayed, and our van took 19 months for it to be built. And, we were in a line. It doesn't take that long to build a caravan.
I was going to say, that sounds a long time.
Must be a super-duper caravan for that. Even things like the second-hand car market went crazy. There was no second-hand cars available. Then there was no new cars available, so we had to wait 9 months for that. And then finally around, I think it was June 2023, we actually launched and left our hometown. And we've been on the road since.
And you run a website as well. I think we should mention that as well. So that's all around Oz.
All around Oz, yeah.
Yeah, which is, as you say, helping people plan their lap of Oz, which is,
yes,
it's such an exciting thing to do. And when I just hear those words, my heart goes boom, 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 because it just sounds so exciting. So for us, I know when Doug and I chat about our favourite trips anywhere in the world, in the top 3, without a doubt, it was our Outback Queensland road trip we did a few years ago. And we loved it. So I know we're going to love it. I don't know whether we're going to deal with a caravan or we're going to get a motorhome. We haven't decided yet, because I know that's a big issue. But so you've been travelling on the road since last year. So tell me about the last year. What have been the highlights of the last year? What have been the things that you just go, wow, this is what a life we've got?
Yeah, it's funny, you should say that, oh, what a life we've got, because for the first probably about 6 months, I kept saying to myself, we're actually doing this. We're actually, because we've been talking about it and dreaming about it for so long. It was like, we're doing it. Some of the places that have been highlights have been unusual places that, A, I didn't realise we were going to end up in, and B, I didn't know a lot about before I actually visited there. And one is in the Gulf of Carpentaria. There's a place called Karumba. There's hardly anything there. Like, it's a real fisher person's paradise.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when you just go to a place and there's a certain vibe about the place and you just like it. That was one place. And the scenery's beautiful. The ocean's gorgeous, but you can't swim because there's crocodiles. So that was one place. The other place that really struck me, you're saying Outback Queensland, was Winton. I loved Winton. That was an amazing little town, or is an amazing little town, with a big dinosaur history there, which is fascinating.
It's fabulous, isn't it? It's really fantastic there. It's true. It's one of the Longreach and Winton were just absolutely places that I can't wait to go back to, honestly. They're so high on my wish list to go back to. Yeah, there's just something about those outback towns, isn't it? That's just fabulous.
Really
so I'm guessing you haven't spent the entire 12 months or so in Queensland. So
no.
So tell me where else have you been, and how do you organise your year? Because I'm going to ask this because obviously Queensland and if you get too far north in summer, it's extremely hot. So you have to really consider that. So what do you do when it gets hot? And what do you do when it gets cold? I guess you kind of swap it round. You flip round where you go.
We do. Yeah, we do. So last year, around about this time last year, we were just coming back. We'd travelled all the way up to Cape York, which is another kind of one of those iconic road trips, one of those rites of passages. It's about 650 k's of corrugated red dirt, and I mean red dirt that gets in everywhere. So we say north is best in the winter time, and our winter, we're just coming out of our winter now and going into spring in September. So right now we would have been heading back from Cape York in far north Queensland, and then we just sort of meandered down the coast road. Another fantastic place that I think everyone, if they're visiting Australia, should go and see is Paranella Park.
Yes.
It's just an amazing history and a fantastic story about one Spanish man that emigrated to Australia and his work ethic and vision. He was a real visionary I'd say even now he would be an extremely popular visionary, because what he did back then in the 50s was just incredible for Australia, or for Queensland. So we tend to have a rough idea of where we want to go and when, and that for us is generally dictated by the weather, because we're not very fond of the cold.
Neither am I. So I'm taking notes. Said that I'm heading to the UK soon, so maybe I'm not taking good enough notes. But at some point in my life, I'm pledging to never feel the cold ever again.
Yep. People my Kev always says to me, "Are you sure you're a pom? You don't like the cold?"
I think
I'm
that I
like,
think
"I'm
that
not a
proves it
pom."
even more.
Exactly.
We're not, because we want out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So at Easter time, we were down in Victoria, and I'm not kidding. Easter Monday, a cold snap started down there, and we then travelled sort of into South Australia, and we thought we would like to do, for people that don't know, that are listening, they have the most spectacular peninsulas. They have 3 peninsulas in South Australia, and they take quite some time to explore and enjoy those for the whole 3 of the peninsulas. So we thought we'd do that, and then we'd head up the centre of Australia, right from down South Australia all the way up to Darwin in the Northern Territory. However, the weather had different ideas for us. So we were in the Barossa Valley, and it was cold. So we thought, okay, that's enough. We're just going to head north. So the weather does determine that for us, and we are fortunate the way that we travel. We're on the road full time. We don't have specific time commitments to be anywhere at a certain time. So we do wing it a lot. And sometimes we miss out on a particular spot that we want to stay, like a particular, say, caravan park or free camp area or whatever, because we don't book anything. We might book a day or 2 in advance.
And how long do you stay in a place? Because there's a few things that just cross my mind. One is kind of, I guess, the budgeting aspect of it in terms of like how can you free camp, how often you can free camp, and how long you can stay if you are free camping, as opposed to then finding a campsite with or without power. I mean, and I've heard these terms and have no idea what half of it means. I guess some of it you plug in and you get electricity, and other ones you're just in a tent. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's kind of that. And then you've got the freedom, I guess, to just stay there, I don't know, indefinitely if you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah. So some free camps, and for those that don't know, free camping is designated camping spots. Americans, I think, call it boondocking, where you're not actually physically plugged into electricity or water. So to do that, you have to have a fairly good setup of solar panels and lithium batteries that stores the power once it's made. And then the biggest thing that sends people back on the grid or back into civilization from free camping is water.
Right.
We can survive off grid for weeks on end, but for water.
Right.
So we're fully self-sufficient. We have a full electric van inside, and we have some gas outside as well. So we have 2 alternate heating and cooking, different power sources. So it depends. Some are rest areas that are only sort of 24 hours, so you can only stay 24 hours. Others, you can stay up to 78 hours. And then some are indefinite. And unfortunately, in Australia, the free camping is sort of shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So a lot of the councils around Australia have now, I'm not saying it's happening every week, but there are some that have been quite popular now that are closing. So
do you think that's because there's more people on the road? Because obviously during COVID, everybody in Australia seemed to go and buy a caravan, a motorhome, car, whatever. Everybody was at it. So you couldn't buy one. I remember we were kind of looking with friends, and the prices were absolutely crazy. We were like, how much?
Yeah.
And so I guess, I don't know, are people as much on the road as they were then? Because that was a kind of crazy time when everybody just did it. Mm-hmm. Or because it's such a popular thing for people to do when they get older, is they've you paid off your mortgage, you've got your kids have grown up, flown the nest or whatever, you've retired, you've got your pension. It's like, well, rather than stay in this house, we're just going to get a van and we're going to travel around Australia. So do you think there's more people doing that these days?
Well, yes and no. There's a lot of families on the road. So a lot of people around sort of 35 to, say, 55 that might have kids that haven't sort of flown the coop yet. And a lot of what's called here fondly as grey nomads.
Yeah.
People who are retired. Is it busier this year than last? Here in the Northern Territory, we're in Darwin at the moment in the Northern Territory, and the last couple of places we've been, and speaking to the park managers or the owners of caravan parks, they're sort of saying things to us like, oh, it's not as busy as last year. So whether that's just an NT thing, I don't know. I believe in Western Australia, it's still as busy as all get out for all the very popular free camps and national park camps along the coastline, because we're going next year. So we're really looking forward to that. And I think the general feel in other states is it's just as busy. So
plenty of people out on the road.
Yeah. So people are still buying and selling caravans and still buying and selling four-wheel drives to tow them, and motorhomes as well. So
would you recommend, because we I must admit we have been looking online for the last few years, probably for about 5 years now. And we kind of have our heart set. It's actually a business near where we are, actually in Redcliffe, so on the peninsula. Okay. And they make, I don't know, motorhomes. So they're kind of a motorhome, but they're a car with like a back. I don't know how to describe it. So this is not a very good example of me doing it, but it's not a big, massive. You know, when you think of like a motorhome, you think of kind of big. I think of quite a big thing, or it's not. It's
like a Winnebago sort of thing.
Yeah, something smaller than that. It just looks really, but they're so expensive. I think like when we first started looking, I think they're about 180,000. I think they're about 280,000 now, with about I don't know if they have a long waiting list, but they are lovely, and we have our kind of heart set on that because it would just be perfect for the two of us. But I know you guys have a caravan, and that works for you. And I think this is going to be one of those ones where the decision about trying out a caravan as opposed to kind of the motorhome, camper van type. Did you try both, or did you just know a caravan was exactly what you wanted?
Yeah, we did. Kev had travelled, this is before he met me, he travelled up the top end for 3 months in a caravan. I laughingly call it a caravan because I wouldn't have gone with him at the time. Well, funnily enough, I've just written an article this week, actually, a caravan versus a motorhome, because I get asked that a lot. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
We knew the type of travel that we wanted to do and where we wanted to go and what we wanted to see. We couldn't do that in a motorhome. So we knew that we wanted to go to Cape York. But like a lot of people leave their caravans behind, whereas we had a van specifically built for off-road caravanning. So we knew we could leave the black top and hit the dirt roads and we'd be fine.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to know if you want to do that. You can still camp off-grid with motorhomes these days, you know, with lots of solar panels and lithium batteries and so forth. But the biggest thing with a motorhome versus a caravan, if you're going off-road, is the clearance. They just don't have the clearance of a caravan.
Right.
Look, there's a lot of fors and againsts, and I go into that in this article about, you know, motorhomes. If you want to go down to the shops, say, and it's 5 k's away, do you pack up everything and drive down there?
Yeah.
And that for us we didn't want to do. But flip of that is if you're in a motorhome, the weather's bad, you pull up, you turn your seats around and you're right there. You don't even have to go into the weather.
Yeah.
But if you're chasing the sun, then you don't have bad weather.
I love it. I love it. You see, there's just pros and cons. Well, we'll share a link to that article because I desperately want to read that as well. Because it's, I think for us, when I spoke to Doug about it, he just doesn't want to pull a caravan. He's like, I've never done it my entire life. I don't feel confident about that. So that's his motivation for kind of saying that.
Yeah, and that's fair enough.
And I think that's a big thing for him. But there's a couple of things I want to ask you as well. Right. Sure. So I have a lot of stuff. So I would have to get rid of a lot of stuff. So how do you, and I guess, see, this is the joy as well about chasing the sunshine and the weather. You don't need a huge amount of clothes, do you?
No. You do need, what I have found being on the road, I thought that, I'm going to live in T-shirts and shorts, you know. But even in Central Australia, where it can, like, it could be 30 degrees during the day, but it gets quite cool at night and in the morning. So you might need a pair of leggings or, you know, a jacket or so forth. Or you might get stuck like we did in the wrong part of Australia at the wrong time of the year and you're freezing. And I literally had to go buy some winter clothes.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any on board, which was, you know, rookie mistake. But now I have, like, you don't need a lot. Look, seriously, you could wear the same things over and over and over again. 3 outfits that would do you really, because you're not seeing everyone.
Oh, I know. It
every
sounds
single day.
ideal. I just like the idea of having a pair of leggings and a top and just lots of t-shirts and some sarongs in a swim costume. I'm going to say flip flops because I'm English, but thongs if you're Australian.
Yeah.
It just sounds fantastic. Now, the other thing I have to ask you, there's a couple of things that always interest me with this. So one is like how much you can take with you. 2 is cooking. So do you cook in the van or do you tend to do barbecues outside more often?
Both, really. Like I might do some veggies inside and Kev might do something on the barbecue. We have an air fryer, so I always do a roast every week. We love roasts, so that's a pom coming out in this.
I was going to say, you're definitely there.
Then it's great for sandwiches and so forth afterwards as well. So we do a mixture of both. And I just cook. People say, what do you cook when you go camping? And we pretty much, I just cook as I used to at home. I cook pretty much everything from scratch. So I just do that. I've got a Thermomix as well, which is a bit extravagant, but this is our home. This is where we live.
Yeah.
And we're on the road full time.
I guess you don't have like a big store. Like I just thinking about in our kitchen, I've got like a big cupboard with all my story, and I suppose you have to think about weight with a van in terms of, so you have to think about, you can't have lots of tins of whatever because it's going to take up too much weight. So do you plan your meals ahead so you know what you're going to buy, and then it means that you've got what you need?
I'd love to say yes, and I'm so bloody organised, but I'm not. Because sometimes I might plan 3 days ahead when I'm going to the supermarket to buy whatever. I get a little bit more organised when we do big trips that we know that we're not going to be able to buy, or if you do buy, they're going to be double the price because you're in some outback town in the back of Whoop Whoop. So when we went to camping, sorry, your readers are going to get a lot of Aussie, listeners are going to get a lot of Aussie sayings, aren't they? So when we went to Cape York, for example, we stocked up on some fresh meat that I froze down and things like that. You do tend to sort of make more plans around meals when you're doing those longer trips between stores and supermarkets. Yeah.
And then the next question. These are just funny things that come into my head, I guess. That's why I've just but it's things that you don't know because I've never been in a caravan. I've never camped. I have, but years ago in a tent under duress.
Right.
No. So I feel like I need to, now as being Australian, I feel like I need to get into this. I need to be exploring and trying all this stuff out. But what do you do when you, right, Kate, now washing your clothes in Australia is not generally, if you live in warmer climates, you wash it and it's dry within about 20 minutes because it's so warm. So obviously with water being a thing, how do you tend to, again, wait until you're somewhere that you've got access to water and then you can do your washing? I assume you've got a washing machine in your caravan.
I do.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love that.
It's a little top loader. It's a whole 3.5 kilos it can hold. So it would take like one queen size sheet. That would be it. That's how tiny it is. But when you're off grid, you tend to, if it's warmer climates, you might be in your bathers or swimmers and a sarong, that sort of thing. You tend to, because water is such a thing and you want to conserve water, you might jump in the shower, get wet, turn it off, soap up, rinse off, and that's your shower. And you might not shampoo your hair as regularly as you would if you were in civilization. I tend to, I don't do any washing off grid at all. I think we've got enough clothes that we can get by for possibly about 2 weeks if we had to.
Yeah.
And then, if we're doing that sort of camping, then I know we're going to be somewhere warm. So you could probably save your water that you're showering with into a bucket sort of thing, do whatever hand washing if you really were pushed,
It just all sounds like such an adventure, I have to say.
It is an adventure.
I know.
It is an adventure.
So where are you guys? So at the moment you're in the Northern Territory and you're in Darwin, which I haven't been to. I've been in the Northern Territory. I've only been to Uluru before. I've not been.
Okay.
That's it. We did a trip when we first arrived in Australia. We went there for 5 days. Flew into Uluru itself, I think. Yes,
Yes.
from what I
Yeah,
remember,
you
it's
would
a
have.
few years ago now.
Yeah.
But we haven't been back. It's kind of on my absolute wish list. And whenever I go up to the Andorra lava tubes, because that's a place that we absolutely love in Queensland. And whenever I go and I sit, and I'm sure you've been in Andorra, there's like a big seating area that you can sit, and it's all kind of just got like a roof on it, but it's all open air. And every time I sit there, we get the map out. There's all these leaflets, and it's got the Savannah Trail, and I just the Savannah Way. That's it, the Savannah Way.
Yeah.
And every time I go there, I say, Doug, I can't wait to do this. I absolutely cannot wait to do this. And it's like we get on the road and we turn our car the opposite direction, and a little bit of me just goes sad at that at that thought. So go on, give me some inspiration. Where are you guys off to next? What are your plans for the next, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months? Do you know?
Yes. Well, we were going to. See, this is what happens. We've just back from Bali. We've been in Bali. While we were here in Darwin, we thought we'd nip over to Bali for 3 weeks. So we've been there, done that, came back. And whilst we were over there, in the last week we were over there, we get a phone call in the ensuite in our home has sprung a leak. So it needs renovating. So it was like, do we go back? Do we patch it up? Do we, what do we do? Anyway, so we're going there to do that. So we're going back to Hervey Bay.
In Queensland?
Yes, sorry, Queensland. What we were going to do is go across to Queensland and then go just inside the Queensland border, like outback Queensland, and then back down and into South Australia. So now we'll zip over, do this for a month, this renovation, and then we're going to head down to South Australia, hopefully do one of the peninsulas in that time. Then that will take us to around Christmas time, where we'll be in Bendigo for Christmas. And then in February, we're heading over to Tasmania.
Oh, that's one of my favourite places.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait to do that.
Just love Tasmania. Honestly, when I talk to people in the UK and they talk about Australia, I say 3 things that you need to do. One, you need to go to Uluru. I'm a firm believer. You really need to go. There's something about Uluru that's so much.
It really is. Yeah.
The other one is do an outback Queensland road trip. And the third one I always say, and this is no necessarily the order that I would say in any of these 3 or all of these 3. And the third one is Tasmania, because that is just something amazing about Tasmania as well.
It really is. And we did a 2-week trip down there. This was pre our van. We just hired a car and stopped off. We travelled that same way. We, just winging it wherever we went. And we kept saying, can't wait to get back here with a van, can't wait to get back here with the van. So that's happening. And we thought, because you have to put your car and the van on the Spirit of Tasmania, and it's quite a hefty price to do that. It's upwards of $2,000, $2,500 return, depending on the size of your car and your caravan.
Wow. Yeah. I'm gobsmacked when you said that. I thought you were going to say $200. Wow.
No.
Wow.
Your car, caravan. And see, because it's a 12-hour trip, and I am not good on the water at all. So it has to be nighttime, so I'll at least go to sleep, hopefully. But we're going to have a smooth sailing.
Of course
the night that we sail, it's going to be 100%. Like glass when we go 100%. Over there. So we thought, got to make the most of it, and we'll stay for the 3 months. And no doubt, apparently summer in Tasmania is the month of February.
Oh, okay.
any other month during the year, you need gloves, hat, and a jacket, maybe.
I was going to have to say
one with you.
We were there in January a few years ago. I can't remember what year that was. Maybe 3. I can't remember. But it was very hot. It was incredibly hot. Yeah? I think it was the hottest that it ever been at Cradle Mountain. It was like 42 degrees or something. It was Melbourne was also having a massive heat wave, and Tasmania got it as well. And it was very dry. So that was a bit of a worry as well, because obviously risk of fires. Yes. And it was very, very hot. So the animals were struggling a bit because it was hotter than they'd experienced. So so I don't know. Maybe it'll be hopefully not as hot as that, because that was not pleasant, and I say it wasn't good for the animals either. But what I loved about Tasmania is, I mean, I love cherries. So the cherries are the size of your hand. So that for a start off
Yes.
was me won over. But also
Yep.
they just have on the side of the road, they have those honesty tables, box, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call them, and you can go and buy potatoes. And they had the cherries has always
Hmm.
come cherries, and I can't apples. I think I can't remember raspberries. I
Raspberries.
do remember raspberries. Now you said it, raspberries. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You're going to have an absolute ball. I'm
Oh,
very
I know.
jealous. I'd be very
And you
jealous if I
haven't,
wasn't traveling myself, but.
you have not mentioned the wine trails.
Oh, well, okay. Well, now I have my husband who doesn't drink so that I can go and
Oh,
try those. And we've done those in South Australia. But I have to say, I enjoyed, when I think about it now, it was not the wine that's crossed, it was the fruit and the raspberries and the
oh
cheese
yeah.
and ice creams and all
Oh,
that sort of thing that
yep.
totally,
Yeah,
but
the
yes,
food,
wine.
amazing. Yes, and wine.
Oh, wine's so
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, we can't wait. And Tassie has, for such a small state, it has a very high amount of free camping.
Okay.
So, which is fantastic because that is the preferred camping that we do like to do. Get away from.
Well, and also that balances up the fact that you've got to pay a lot of money to get there.
Yes.
So if you go,
Yes.
and at least you've got the free camping options, that's brilliant.
Yes.
I'm following that away as well for future knowledge.
Yes.
But I'm going to ask you, Annette, though, for anybody who's thinking about planning a trip, doing the Lap of Oz,
Yep.
and they're in the early stages of thinking about it, or the kind of it's just a bit of a pipe dream, what would you say for anybody like myself who's at some point knows that I really want to do this?
Yes. The number one thing, and we get this all the time, is like, I'd really like to do it, but things get in the way, and we want to leave in such and such a date. You have to set a date. This is if you know that you're off doing your thing and so forth. But when you come back and you say, right, we're doing it. Number one thing is you set a date first, and then everything else will fall into place. It'll be a lot easier because there are more vans available now, and whether you buy new or secondhand, the wait times aren't the same for new builds as they used to be. Some manufacturers, like our manufacturer, is still as busy as anything, and they're doubling their capacity in their workshops and so forth, rather than extending their wait times. So you'll get an idea of the wait times. Then you can plan your leaving day, set it in cement,
Yep.
and then work backwards. So I've got a little ebook that helps people do that, and I've got a couple of bonuses where I take you through 12 months beforehand and what you need to be doing each month as you're getting closer and closer. And then I have another bonus that is a 12-week countdown to when you're going, even down to making sure the rubbish is in the bin before you leave on the day that you're walking out the door, sort of thing. So
You've got everything covered.
Yeah, and I take people through how to pack their house up and so forth. And some of the big questions are, what do I do with my house? Do I sell it or do I rent it? So they're all the sorts of questions that only you can answer, really.
Yeah.
I pose some questions about, do you actually like where you're living? Would you like to live somewhere else? And so on and so forth. But I would still advise people not to sell real estate until you are 100% sure that you no longer want to live there. You want to live over there, in maybe a different state after you've travelled. Who knows? But
Or maybe you just want to travel forever.
Yeah, maybe. But it's more than security. We've heard a couple of stories where people have sold up, and now with real estate booming over the last 12, 18 months, they can no longer buy back into the market where they used to live. So they either have to move to a country area where it's cheaper to buy, or move completely interstate. So I'd always say, no matter what, if you've got real estate, keep it. It's probably only going to go up in value in the time that you're away.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. So we'll link to your Facebook group, and you've got Instagram, sure. I'm assuming?
Yes, got Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. So all your socials. YouTube, are you on YouTube?
I am, but I have done nothing on YouTube. Mel, who used to have the website before me, all the content on there is from her and Brendan. But we have Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, and Planning a Lap of Australia, the group.
Perfect.
Group
so
well.
we'll link to all of those, and we'll link to your ebook as well. It's an ebook, I'm assuming, yeah?
Yeah, it is an ebook.
Buy it down that. Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll link to all of that in the show notes, which is great. I'm glad you've got all those resources because, you know, when you're planning something like that, it's like we do for our UK travel planning group and everything that we do. You know, people need experts to help them with this.
They really do.
Because it's, you know, you need people that have already been there, done that, got the T-shirt, have learnt the lessons, because then you don't have to do those mistakes.
Yes.
And that's that, you know, and that's just a way of life, isn't it? We kind of get there, we do it, and we share our expertise and knowledge, and that's exactly what you guys are doing. So yeah, I mean, thanks so much for coming on, Annette, this week. Honestly, I could talk to you forever about this. It's just amazing what you guys are doing. It's what a fantastic way to live.
Yeah, it really is. And apart from all the beautiful things that we see and the experiences that we have, we've met some terrific people along the way as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. Oh, thank you so much, Annette.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.